Welcome to our latest Hoopcast. Pat Dooley of the Gainesville Sun along with Kevin Brockway of the Gainesville Sun, and of course Florida coming off a big win over Kentucky. And Kevin, even though it wasn't a big crowd for game day, it was a great crowd for the game itself, and I thought a well-played basketball game.
Yeah, and Florida showing a little resiliency there because, that's could be a potentially devastating loss when you miss 3 of 10 free throws down the stretch and you look like you have the game won, and then to come back in overtime. And I thought that they played, a little bit more aggressive offensively in overtime, and obviously Calathis' three-pointer was big, Hodges' three-pointer was big, and they made their free throws in overtime, which they couldn't do down the stretch. Ironically, 10 for 10 as opposed to 3 for 10 down the stretch. Something that you just, can't really explain.
No, you can't. I thought the great thing for this Florida team was that they won a game without making a bunch of three-pointers. I wasn't sure they could do that this year. I thought they were going to have to make a lot of three-pointers to beat anybody, but the Gators still unranked, and to be honest with you, don't think they should be ranked. They don't have a big win. What's their biggest win right now?
Well, they only have one game all season against a ranked opponent, and I think, if you were on the table this weekend, if you win at South Carolina and you beat Vanderbilt, which is a ranked team, then maybe start to talk about the rankings. But right now, their schedule just hasn't really added up in terms of facing ranked opponents. You only have one game to gauge, and that's at Mississippi. And certainly they played hard. It was a 2-point game. Maybe it would have been a little bit more of a margin if Mississippi made their free throws. So I think Vanderbilt will be a more interesting test this weekend. But first, they have to get by South Carolina.
Well, I think it's good that they're not ranked because the last time they got ranked, they got beaten. I just don't think this team needs to be ranked right now, and how they handle success will be a huge part of what happens this week. But also how Maurice Spates handles success. He finally had a big game, and we'll see if he can put together back-to-back good games. But after being invisible and certainly not even playing the last 12 minutes against Ole Miss, he had a huge game against Kentucky, 20 points, I think, with 8 rebounds.
And this sets up for him to have a good game because when you take a look at South Carolina's front line, they don't really have much size, much depth. They actually had more success with a smaller front line against Arkansas, and Odom is kind of sticking with it. However, with Maurice on the road, you always have to worry about foul trouble on the road in the SEC. He's going to have to play smart, and he's going to have to come out and play with a lot of energy as well.
Yeah, he will, and obviously we saw something special in Nick Calathis the other night. There's a fine line there with him. He's got to continue to play and be the guy on that team, but not do too much. And I was talking to somebody today, one of the assistant coaches, who said Nick Calathis has a great inner arrogance that if he screws up and they yell at him, it doesn't bother him. He comes right back. And he's going to be something special to watch at Florida over the next few years. Yeah,
and I had a chance to talk to his dad yesterday, John, and he had mentioned that he thinks just from playing with his older brothers and constantly, going through that process of when you're younger, of getting beat and coming back, kind of, feels this. There is a certain fearlessness about him. Even in the Alabama game, you took a look at down the stretch in that game, that bounce pass that he made. 99 out of 100 times a freshman doesn't make that kind of risky pass, but he's got that kind of inner resolve about him where he's not afraid to make mistakes and make those plays because he feels like he can come back the next time and do it right.
Florida at South Carolina Wednesday night. It'll be a big game for the Gators. It's one of those games they definitely can lose it. There'll be a lot of emotion. Although I don't know how much emotion there'll be in the crowd, Kevin, because they wanted Dave Odom out. They got their wish. I don't know that they're going to be all fired up about his first game since he's announced his retirement.
I found it very curious, his explanation on the teleconference on Monday, and he was talking about he did it because he didn't want to be a distraction. Well, this creates a huge distraction, don't you think, for the rest of the season, having someone announce it? But, Billy had some very nice things to say about Dave. I personally, in my dealings with him, he's always been a class guy. He's always been very accessible, very approachable. And but maybe the time was right for him to go at this point in time, just because South Carolina is in a situation where the last couple of years they haven't made the tournament. Dave, he was the king of the NIT. He won that, but I think the fan base certainly there. They have higher expectations and they want more.
I wonder about the culture up there. They've turned Steve Spurrier into a 500 coach. I'm just not sure about the culture of losing that seems to pervade up at South Carolina, but I know one thing: we won't miss his answers in press conferences and teleconferences because Dave Odom is the most long-winded coach in this conference and never really says a whole lot.
Well, Billy's a close second, but Billy usually at least gives you something.
Yeah, Dave, you can pick out the gems in there.
Dave is a little bit different because he just kind of waxes poetic about
Filibuster.
anything. Yeah, exactly, totally.
Yeah, but it'll be an interesting game for Florida. It's a game I think It's funny because I felt like Kentucky was a must-win game. Well, now they turn around. Here's a game. It's not so much a must-win, but if they can get another road game, that's 2 wins on the road, and we've been doing the math all along. If you win, let's say if you win 7 of your 8 home games and you win 2 on the road, that's 9 and 7 in the conference, which probably gets them in. So it's a big game tomorrow on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think Billy's teams, though, traditionally throughout the 4 years that I've covered the team, they've always responded at least well on the road. They've always been about a 500 team on the road. And, I think this year that sets up the possibility, but I think this is important because when you take a look at the next 2 after this, at Arkansas and at Tennessee are 2 very tough places to play. So if you get this one, it would kind of bode well in breaking even on the road, which is, I think, probably the goal.
Of course, at Arkansas, not looking as tough because of the way they're playing, but you figure eventually they're going to figure out what John Pelphrey wants. Although they may not have the personnel to run John Pelphrey offense, but that's way down the road. This week at South Carolina, we'll be back after that game and talk about that game as well as previewing Florida's Sunday game, not Saturday, Sunday game with Vanderbilt.
At least there's no NFL, you know what I mean? You'll still have an okay
thank goodness
crowd.
for that. I think it'll be a big crowd and it'll be a fun day. But I kind of like the Saturday games myself. I'm not a big fan of Sunday games. I like to have my Sundays to myself. But they didn't ask me when they were doing the scheduling. Until next time, Pat Dooley, Kevin Brockway, so long from the Sunshine State.